Another edition of Riding Home. Dean Leggy, Ryan Curley. Georgia's trying to get healthy, which is that's the one thing they're not accomplishing this season so far. Kirby said today, Ryan, that this is about as banged up as he's ever seen his program be. I don't have you on the screen yet. Sorry about that. They're trying to get healthy. Marius Mims is going to be out for a while. Doesn't look like Lad McConkey is going to play this week. It's tough out there right now for Georgia.
It is. It is tough out there. Marius Mims, obviously, tacking on to that long list this past weekend. And it's not just that they have all these injuries; it's that they've been having injuries to key players,
Right.
players that really matter. Javon Bullard really matters, and I think there's a solid chance that he plays this week against UAB. You kind of expect him to be back by Auburn, but look, I mean, Lad McConkey is supposed to be your number one wide receiver, is supposedly, going to be an NFL draft pick there in a few months, and he hasn't been able to play. And it's one of those weird back injuries where it's kind of like, well, like there's not a true timetable for Lad McConkey, and that's something that concerns as well. But the running back room with Roger Robinson, Kendall Milton, Branson Robinson, Edwards is now back. It's like a revolving door of injuries in that position room.
Yeah, I mean, this is very much like a professional team in many ways, and they're going to have to adjust. I mean, injuries are such a big part of the NFL, as everyone watching knows, particularly Ryan, and Georgia's going to have to adjust along the way. It would be nicer for them to take more advantage of their situation in terms of when they're in the red zone, and they bogged down twice inside the South Carolina 15-yard line, I think, and got 3 points for that total. Still won the game by 10, but it is going to be, and Brock Bowers is definitely a little bit dinged up. You have Mims, Bowers, McConkey. Take your pick at running back. They're definitely banged up in spots that you don't want to be. But this program has recruited at an elite level for a long time, and it's something they just are going to have to get past.
Yeah, look, they have talented players, the twos, threes, and fours. Georgia recruits and develops probably better than anyone right now, right? So they've got a lot of capable football players, and that's been on display this entire season, and they've shown trust in all those guys being able to get out there. Obviously, the first two games are blowouts, and you have a lot more leeway in getting younger players more time. But today, a big focus, a big something that Kirby Smart talked about that was really important was them just getting better in the red area on both
Yes.
sides of the ball. That was brought up.
Both
Like,
sides?
yeah, that on defense, get a rushing touchdown is a no-no against Georgia's defense. That's what he said. That's a no-no at
Well,
Georgia.
okay.
That obviously happened on Saturday.
Let me just talk about one thing real quick. EcoPoly's got a lot to offer for you. If you have a brand new house, Ryan Curley, you getting that Matt DeBerry money? You need to check out EcoPoly. They've got it's just really well made poly lumber with built-in UV inhibitors to create a solid and durable product with a 20-year warranty. This is not something that you're just buying. It's easy to deal with. It's easy to clean. Two-tone furniture if you want red and black. If you want to bring this with you when you are tailgating. Recycled material made in Georgia. Obviously, we've talked about that quite a bit. Um, if Georgia could be as dependable as EcoPoly in terms of getting things built and usable, right now they're not. Georgia's not durable the way that you need to be. The way that certainly the EcoPoly products are, and that's something that as we move forward here, this is going to be at minimum, I would say, a 14-game season, Ryan. Very possibly a 15-game season. They do need to get healthy. There's no game out here that they still shouldn't win by a significant margin, but whatever that may be for you watching at home. But they do need to get right.
Yeah, and well, the thing is, that's really hard to do when you're playing games every week. I mean, you usually don't see teams just get healthier and healthier throughout the season. You see teams get dinged up and dinged up throughout the season. So, I mean, are we at the point where we're calling this a significant issue?
Well, let me make sure I've got Kirby's exact quote correct because I don't want to. We have the longest injury list since being here. And I'm trying to think of it. I think I think that is probably true. I mean, obviously Kirby would be more of an expert on that than I am. I can't remember them being kind of dinged
Kirby's
up.
more of an expert than you?
Yeah, not on everything, just perhaps on this particular subject matter. And brownies, both of those things. He is. He always listen. That's his.
Not
He's
Brookies.
he's claiming that.
No Brookies?
So I try to stay away from both. I did destroy those chocolate chip cookies on Saturday. That was a mistake. That was definitely a mistake. Although, did you reheat the flank steak?
Yeah, man. I ate that right out the pan while I watched my Falcons get
Did
that
you?
dub yesterday.
How about your Falcons? 2-0, probably going to win the division. Um, I think that I think he's probably frustrated right now. I will say this: after going back and watch the game, I do think people are overreacting. I think Georgia played better than folks realize. I think that they're just not. It's exactly what I talked about quite a bit, which is you cannot go to the 15-yard line twice in a game and come away with 3 points. I mean, that needs to be at least 7 at minimum, if not 10. So,
Yeah.
it's okay, and you're allowed. Now, this I'm not an expert like you or whoever else, but you're also allowed to score twice, 2 touchdowns in that scenario too, Ryan.
Well, I can't remember the exact quote, but he said something that was almost exactly what you said in riding home the other day, which is if you don't have to kick field goals if you're scoring touchdowns. Oh, he said, extra points are easier than field goals. That's what he said. And look, it is, and Carson said this to you on Saturday, and Kirby kind of said it in a different way. Just, people are going to miss kicks. It happens sometimes. Kirby more so was talking about along the lines of, look, he's a freshman. It was raining. Like there are some factors that go into it, but no, you don't want to be missing multiple field goals. I mean, 2 field goals is a touchdown. I mean that's 6 more points that Georgia could. 30-14 probably simmers down a little bit of the panic from the fan base versus 24-14. But it'll be interesting because he wasn't really asked about if there's going to be a change at kicker or anything. So it will be interesting to see if Jared Zirkle maybe gets a shot this coming week.
So listen, he's their best place kicker. You know why I know that as a non-expert? Because he's the guy that's out there. I mean, Nick Saban has already Nick Saban's already gone back to Jalen Milroe, which there's a reason why these coaches do what they do, and my suspicion is we've seen the worst of Peyton. Help me with the last name.
Woodring.
Right.
Yeah, you're not great with those kicker last names, are you?
Hey man, I'm a lot better at them when they make them. So, challenge issues.
Challenge to Peyton Woodring right there. Calm down.
Yeah, I mean, look, I to part of me, the 40-something yarder, I don't think that's a giant killer. You're gonna miss 40-yard field goals. It was not a great looking 40-yard field goal, but you're gonna miss them. It's the other ones that are just inexcusable. The one against Ball State that was within 30 yards, and the other one against South Carolina in particular was just really a stadium killer. But this team in the second half showed that they're the best team in the country. And there's a lot of self-hating Georgia fans. Georgia fans are elite at that, man. Like, they're really good at that. But the problem is for them, for that group, is all you have to do is watch the second half and say, oh, this is what they're capable of playing like. But it is up to them, Ryan, to just play better the whole game. I mean, again, you don't have to kick field goals, and you're permitted. I do think the coaching staff's got to do a better job of getting this team ready to fire out right away. The first 5 minutes of the games doesn't always matter as much as the last 5 minutes, but it is a 5 minutes in the game, and it matters.
Well, you can go back and just pick out these games where Georgia's just on it from the jump, and it just feels like it's over from that point. Arkansas 2021, did that not feel like it was over in the first quarter? Same thing with Oregon last season. Games like that.
They have the capability. I'm sorry talking over you, but they have the capability of doing that. I mean, but that's what people romanticize, and they remember those games only. They do not recall Kentucky last year, Mississippi State last year, Florida. I mean, to some degree, Florida last year. Pick a lot of games last year. Georgia was not shot right out of a cannon. Missouri for sure. And then we came back to Athens, Ryan, and everybody was in a full blown panic that Friday afternoon when we were when we were helping out Hank, but then they steamrolled everybody for a while, for like a month. I do think people are overreacting right now. I think that I did what we're hearing getting ready for Wednesday. I'm talking to a few people, but one person that I've talked to who's coached in the league for a while, just said, the biggest thing you got to do is if you win, you can solve a lot of your problems by just repetition and practice and in games. And they have it set up to where they can win right now, but if they keep up not getting the details, they're going to make mistakes. There was also some discussion of what Shane Beamer said. I'm going to talk about this later in the week, maybe, but he was quite colorful at his halftime speech to the radio folks at South Carolina. Shane Beamer is definitely,
yeah.
What's the word right now?
Colorful is a good way to put it.
Oh, colorful, okay. But
Energized.
yeah, I think Georgia's, just kind of converting when you're in the red zone. And by the way, you don't have to convert in the red zone if you're scoring 30-yard touchdowns or 40-yard touchdowns. B, I would like to see Woodring knock it in there. Just, these are not that hard. He knows what he's doing. This is a mental thing right now. And then C, if the defense continues to play the way that it is, I expect to see Georgia and Houston. But there are things to clean up. And I don't know if everybody else noticed this past Saturday. A lot of teams got a lot more to clean up than Georgia does. Colorado, Alabama, Texas, certainly Tennessee, and Florida State, a team that I still think would give Georgia trouble. But boy, they didn't play well for 60 minutes themselves. It was rough. It's where we're at right now in college football, I'd say.
Yeah, as much as Georgia maybe hasn't looked as we've expected, no one else has pulled away and just made this statement. Yeah, we're the number one team in the country, not Georgia. That hasn't happened. And look, yeah, there were some games last year they had to really fight it out. Obviously, Missouri, and they didn't just steamroll Kentucky. They got off to a slow start against Georgia Tech. I think that the deficit was, I think they were only up by 10 with like 5 or 6 minutes left in the fourth against Kent State, something like that. So it's not like they just went through and just, slapped everyone around. But, the other side of that too is, if this team is not quite as good as last year's team, and I don't want to compare the two teams, but that's what everyone does, they might have to fight a little bit more. They might have to gut. This is what we were talking about on the phone last night. They might have to gut it out a little bit more, and the fan base they just gotta stick with it. They just gotta stick with it. Kirby is just over and over just trying to stop or hit the brakes on all this panic. He hears it, he sees it. So I don't understand booing your offense off the field heading into halftime. So, I don't get the people that leave. That's if the fan base, I don't want to speak ill of the fan base, but is that spoiled?
Well, I think there's no college football fans generally speaking.
But yeah, I get it. I'm not an idiot. You know what I mean? Like I'm around the sport and I understand how rabid this is, but damn, man.
Well, that was not the problem was if they had gotten down the field in position to kick a field goal with a drive starting at your 15, I think they had 50 seconds left. I do not think they had a timeout. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong there.
They had one and they spent it early.
Okay. If they had gotten down the field in 50 seconds in position to score a field goal, that would be exceptional football. So that was sort of that would be exceptional football. These two books behind me, I am guilty of selling the dream of what Georgia has been over the last two seasons. And when you see, Keeley right here making the play that really broke it wide open for Georgia, and then Stetson behind my right shoulder showing you just how sort of dominant Georgia was last year. It to some degree, Ryan, there is this notion that Georgia didn't fight their way to where they just steamrolled everybody. They didn't do that. In 2001, they had to fight Clemson. They had a hard time in that game. JT Daniels was not healthy. They had quarterback problems. They did not play well against South Carolina in 2021, to be honest with you. Um, but they did catch rhythm and exploded.
There were even
And
games later in the year where they blew out Charleston Southern, but that wasn't like a pretty
they did
blowout. You know
not
what I
play
mean?
well at the start of that game.
The Missouri game in 2021, that one didn't look too pretty either. So
No,
you can go through and pick that. People just need to be in reality. We got to be where our feet are, right? That's what Kirby says, and it's 48-7 and 45-3. Great wins. Doesn't matter what the name is of the other team.
I agree. I was talking to an assistant on Sunday. I can't remember if it was the afternoon call or the more evening call, and they'd played somebody who just was not great, and they said, I don't care. We got a lot of stuff going the right direction. It doesn't matter who you play, which is, I mean, I've said that forever, but because that's just sort of a thing, how do you, I'll just for me, I don't think we did a great job for Dog Post on Saturday, but I have to say, I told you after the game, I thought the photos were really, really good. I don't know if it was the lighting or what it was. Sometimes it just turns out in your way, but I think for Georgia, and the whole point is not to leave it to chance. And you and I and Matt left a little to chance too much on Saturday. I left my laptop at the house. That was idiotic. I mean, there were a lot of mistakes. But at the end of the day, everything turned out fine because we just did what we were supposed to do. We missed Shane Beamer slightly, but that we couldn't control that.
Got some other stuff out of it, but
Yeah. For Georgia, there are some things to clean up. There are some little mistakes they're making. One of the coaches that I talked to on Sunday was saying, usually when you goof up in the red zone, it's because you've made a mistake. And if you go back and look, the Tate Ratledge hold, I don't know that he had to hold there on that. And that basically backed them up to where it was a 40-yard field goal. And they could have been still, I think that was that was a converted first down, but I could be wrong about that. And so just backed them up. The South Carolina made a 3rd and 16. They converted that to a touchdown. That should have been a field goal attempt. So so when you give away 3 to 7 points here, and you go from 4, you give away 4 points there, that's a 7 to 11 point swing in a game where, if you're talking about winning the game by 20 or 21 versus 10, that's a very different scenario. Let's just forget the other missed field goal. So, but the warning sign here is don't drop those little. Tie your shoes the right way. Do the details the right way. When you do that, it will all add up the right way. And they're not quite doing that right now. And I know that you and I have just expressed this. It is true that everybody else is not doing it the right way either. But it really is about what is Georgia doing. And in the second half, they did take advantage of that, with the exception of the Tate Ratledge holding. Not calling Tate Ratledge out. That's what happened. And he knows it. He said it on the field. But it's a matter of taking, what's in front of you at that moment and doing it the right way. Start by tying your shoes the right way and just take it from there. And if they do that, they're too good for other people.
Yeah, no, they are. And look, a few of those plays we're talking about, Spencer Rattler, look, he made some plays. And that's going to happen when you're playing really talented football players. They're also going to make plays. It's not like he's just going to go out there and not make any completions. I mean, Georgia was getting pressure on him a lot.
In the second half, a lot.
Through the 3 games, that was the best that Georgia's pass rush has looked. And Spencer Rattler, because he does, as much as I don't think he's an amazing quarterback, he's got some arm talent, he's got some guts, and he's got legs, and all of that combined allowed them to make some spectacular plays at the end of the day. I mean, that's just the case, and that's going to happen sometimes. But they didn't allow it to happen in the second half. They rallied on that. And, how different is that than, them improving how they played against C.J. Stroud in the second half? Him running around and making plays like that. How different is that from them responding in the second half and shoring that up? It's not.
So it isn't. Yeah, I mean, like, Georgia made corrections against Missouri last year. I'm sure they made corrections against South Carolina last year. The difference is they were up 20 against Carolina, and they were, or whatever they were up. And then against Missouri, they were down. What was the score at the half? 17-3?
I want to say it was 16-6.
At Missouri.
Yes.
Yeah, they were down 10.
But it
So
could have been a lot worse
it
if it
could have
wasn't for that
been.
Malachi Starks play.
They could have been down 20-3, not 21. But the thing I think that Kirby is most elite at is are the adjustments at the half. That's the part where it almost seems like they're trying to bait the other team in the first half to say, okay, we're not doing anything crazy at the start here. Go try to score in a normal way, and we're going to adjust to that. I wonder how many, and I'm going to go back and look, but I wonder how many touchdowns that Georgia gives up in SEC play specifically comes on the first drive, because I don't think I think it's a higher proportion than other drives if I'm guessing. But
that was brought up today. That was
oh really?
that was brought up today. How I mean, because that was South Carolina scoring the first drive. I think the only time that happened last year was against Tech.
Tech came down and scored.
So I mean, he said, what the difference in last year is? It took 12 games for that to happen, and this year happened to happen in the third game. But that's another thing. I mean, look, they don't want them in their end zone any of those plays.
It
but
might not happen again.
It might not. I mean
Hugh Freeze. I'm sorry, Ryan. Hugh Freeze may get them, but I don't know if anybody else will.
I don't know that they're going to play a quarterback as talented as Spencer Rattler in the regular season. I don't. And it doesn't just take that to go down and score, but still, I mean.
Well, I mean, again, now on Carolina, I'm going to give them credit for that. I mean, I think they played well.
Shane Beamer and them, they came out ready to go.
They did, no question. That's another thing that Georgia's got to clean up now. Now, it is the coaches, but the kids got to understand people are coming from you, period. Whether you're ready to play or not, they're ready to play. And particularly South Carolina and maybe Auburn, but definitely South Carolina, because they got a whole thing, okay? They got a whole thing over there with Georgia. So it is hard to get up for 12 games. That's true. But damn, man, that was a 3:30 game on CBS. And, you can't be that bored. Like, you got to be ready to go. And again, tie your shoes and be ready to roll. They didn't do that so hot on Saturday. I was going to say something about, the other thing about South Carolina scoring a touchdown, they should not have scored a touchdown. That was a Georgia mistake. You cannot miss what I saw were at least one tackle, if not two. I mean, Dan Jackson missed them, and somebody else had a shot as well. It wasn't as good as Dan Jackson's opportunity, but you got to wrap them up at the 6-yard line or whatever that was, and then they're kicking a field goal, and it's not the same. I mean, the rest of, if you're down 10-3, as bad as they would have played, there were a lot of little things, but the little things are what adds up to big things over time. They don't take points away off the scoreboard. They just don't. But your overall feeling on these injuries, I mean, they're just going to have to get through it. That's all there is to it.
There's no other way to do it. They're going to have to get through it, and the next man up mentality is just going to have to be there, and that's already there. The coaches know that. The players know that.
They're going to have to figure it out with Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey is not playing right now, and he might not play for a while.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound like he's coming back soon. It just doesn't seem that way.
Right. So I don't know when he's coming back, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, that is a thing that is happening. That is not an explanation for everything. So they, just like they got tremendous players on this team. Tremendous players, and they just need to get it all out of. They play like they did in the second half the rest of this season, they're not going to lose. Thanks for watching.